What's the most powerful thing a person can do? What's one of the most powerful things a person can do? Intentionality. Intentionality. And if you think about it, we have such limited, finite time and energy. Take any human who wakes up, they have a certain amount of time and then a certain amount of energy, and then they go to sleep. And then you wake up and you have a certain amount of time and energy, and you go to sleep. And we do that over and over again until we die. So intentionality, closely related to choice, closely related to focus. Is this capacity to essentially say, I'm going to do that. But more precisely, it's, I'm going to do that then. I'm going to do that then. I'm going to do that, meaning I'm going to use my energy. I'm going to focus my energy on that, then, meaning the time. When I say it's one of the most powerful things that a human can do, because we're especially riddled at this time by technology. In this kind of addiction sphere. And a lot of people are spending a lot of hours on their phones even when they don't really want to be. Scrolling, scrolling, flipping. I mean, it has a name now, doom scrolling. But just the sheer amount of time humans all over the world are staring at their little screen instead of having their own thought or interacting with other people. On the one hand, it's a way to connect. It can be, again, it can intentionally be a way to connect. When you tune in, when you go, I want to watch that show. I benefit from that. I want to watch that. I want to connect to that. It's beautiful. It's beautiful and connective in that way. But for the most part, when we're just flipping through, flipping through, doing a little of that, a little of this, a little of that, a little of that, a little of this, checking. So to be intentional with your energy and your time, powerful human quality. powerful evolutionary human quality, especially at this time. I mean, you bring it back several hundred years, and there weren't what I would call the nemesis. I mean, we live in a world that is flooded. I mean, if you think about it, with every gift comes a curse, right? With every tool comes a weapon. And so we're surrounded by all these new amazing tools that are also weapons. All these amazing tools that are being weaponized against us. They are being weaponized against us because they want. They want our attention. They don't want us to have our intention. They want our attention. They are vying for our attention, fighting for our attention, paying for our attention, manipulating our attention. Persuading us for more of our attention. So our intention is profoundly valuable. The human capacity to connect with one's own intentionality and actualize it, follow through with it. What's going to be a superpower over these next decades? The ability and the practice of intending. I will do this at this time. I will do that at this time. I will do that at this time. Then I'll do that. Then I'll do that. Then I'll do that. Then I'll do that. The capacity to the capacity to live by choice, to live by proactivity rather than reactivity. Choice rather than compulsion. Ritual rather than unconscious habituation. Part of the challenge is that if we're in pain, it's a if we're in pain, if we're not resourced, we reach for the resources available to us, and that's what's scary. And imagine you have a mom and a dad and a brother and a sister and a good job, and you're living in a safe town, and you've got a bunch of friends. And you weren't traumatized as a child. Everything's always been good, and everything is good. You don't need to reach. You don't really need to reach. You don't need to grasp. You don't need to depend on some unhealthy coping mechanism or strategy. When your life is so balanced, so happy, and so healthy, oh, you might do a little this over here, a little bit. Oh, yeah, you might be on your phone a little too long, or whatever. You might have a glass of wine, or you might have a piece of chocolate, or whatever. But you don't have a need to start reaching out, resourcing yourself through all that's available, because you have a lot available to yourself. But the less pretty your picture becomes, you do have childhood trauma. You're missing a mom, or you're missing a dad, or you don't have siblings, or you don't have friends, or you've lost your friends, or your friends have died from suicide, or they're ignoring you, or all the things that happen to humans, or you lose your job, and all of a sudden, or you lose your partner, you lose somebody, you lose something, and you're alone, and you're feeling alone, and or you're not alone but you feel alone, or there's some massive imbalance. Work is going really well but family isn't, or family's going well but work isn't, or everything seems to be going well on the surface, but because of past trauma, you're full of sadness or anxiety or shame. And so you start reaching for the cookie, or the heroin, or the alcohol after the alcohol, or the gambling. And people point at you and go, oh, you're messed up, or oh, you're the problem. No, you need help. You need help. Same thing with the phones. You can't point at the teenager and blame them for being on their phone for 10 hours a day. You can hold the companies accountable that are designing the software that is making them there for 10 to 14 hours a day. Again, it's so complex yet so simple. It goes back to resourced. You take the kid, right? Take the kid with the good mom, the good dad. That nice balance of warmth and gentle, kind discipline. The kid has a lot of structure in his reading and his writing, and after school has swimming class, and then dance class, and is part of the debate team, and da-da-da, and the vice president of the shwabba, and on their way to the Ivy League schools, and great. But what about the kid that doesn't have that? What about the kid that's missing a parent? Or the kid who just moved to a new state? Kid who just moved to a new country? Kid who's just trying to fit in? Kid who's super depressed because something horrible happened. Doesn't know how to talk to anybody about it. Doesn't know who to talk to about it. Doesn't know who they can trust. Or they try to trust somebody, try to open up, and then they realize they can't trust that person, or that person doesn't understand. And so there they are in the back of the classroom, sitting on the ground, playing a video game on their phone. And the teacher turns them into the problem student. They just need help. They need support. They need a kind of support that the system isn't giving them, and so they turn to the video game. Video game is a coping strategy. It's a numbing coping strategy. And it used to be that there weren't video games. And then all of a sudden there were video games. But they were played at home on a TV, or they were played at an arcade. And then they came to computers. And they came to laptops, but not everybody had a laptop. But then they brought the laptops into the schools. And then they came to the phones, and then everybody has a phone, and people pull out their phone and they're playing a game in a classroom. They're already addicted to this game. And the teacher gets home after school and lands on the couch. Pulls out the phone. And now the teacher is on Instagram. But it's not like they're really on, they're not really on Instagram, because on the big screen, they're watching something, but it's paused, and then it's playing, and then it's paused, and Instagram, TikTok. What's the weather tomorrow? Back to Instagram. Maybe I should go for a walk. Oh, that looks like a good recipe. I should make that. I should make that one of these days soon. Oh, I'm going to send that to sounds up. Everybody across the world is doing this thing. With this bright light hitting us in our faces. Unlike any century before, any decade before, humans going through life, and all of a sudden bombarded with this addiction. No, it's not an addiction. It's not an addiction. I'm not addicted to it. No, it's not an addiction. No. It's not an addiction? Do you realize how many hours you are doing it? And when we're not going, we're doing something even worse. We're going about our day. We get a little bored. Going about our day. Never allowing ourselves the opportunity for boredom. Never allowing ourselves the opportunity to be in the in-between moments. To be in the in-between moments of life and contemplation and its boredom. and so disconnected from our other humans. So disconnected from other humans. You go on a train, you go on a bus, you go on a park bench. Everyone. You want to just talk to the person next to you? No, they're a stranger. Gotta look at strangers on the internet. So, intentionality. The ability to say, I intend to do that with this time. If we are intentional about where we give our energy over the course of time, that's a great start. We can look at a day like a canvas, like a blank white canvas that we can fill up with color. And live into our intentions. Otherwise, if we sink into our whatever you want to call it, whether it's a person's depression, a person's exhaustion, a person's mental illness, a person's pain, a person's suffering, a person's struggling, a person's anxiety, a person's grief. Whatever it is that makes a person feel in a state where the pain is outweighing the pleasure. It comes by so many different names. But the pain is greater than the pleasure, and we don't like that feeling inside of ourselves, no matter which concoction it is. And so we reach for the easiest thing to reach for. We reach for the easiest thing we can reach for that we trust. And when a person has health and relative adaptation, that person can reach towards a friend, towards a family member, they can reach toward a spiritual guide, a practice. But when a person doesn't have something they feel they can trust that is healthy and is the closest thing to them. They reach for that phone. They reach for that phone. Without even realizing it. Without even realizing it. Without intentionality. It might start with a simple cue. Just going about your business, a little bored, not feeling very good, feeling lonely, feeling anxious, feeling whatever. Wonder what. I could use a shopping. Now all of a sudden on a shopping app, don't even need anything. Oh, but I could use that. All the different possible addictions available there. Shopping addiction, arguing addiction. Gonna go into the comment threads and argue. Validation addiction. Ooh, if I post this, then I'll get likes and people will like me. And if it's not the phone, if the phone isn't the closest thing nearby, or if the phone hasn't really done it, ice cream. Ice cream. Now the pleasure's better. Now the pleasure outweighs the pain. So good. So good. Now, it goes in and it channels through the body. That amount of refined sugar, all of a sudden you got all these organs going, what do you do? What are you putting in? What are you doing to me? Liver doesn't like that. The amount of work it has to do. All this refined sugar. Oh, but it tasted so good. But it wasn't nourishing. It wasn't nourishing this. It was a painkiller. And you can say, yeah, it has nutrients, it has carbs, and it has fat, and it has this a little bit of protein in it. Because there's a little peanut butter in there. But it's not a whole food going into the system and nourishing the system. But it's the closest thing nearby that we can trust will take us out of pain and give us some pleasure. So intentionality, again, the capacity, the ability say what I intend to do, that I intend to do that then. And do is a variable word. Sometimes it's do that then, other times it is consume that then, right? Another way of looking at it is be that then, see that then, and D that then. Be that then stands for be. I'm going to meditate. From 10:05 to 10:20. I'm going to be. That's what I'm going to do. Is be. It's be. C is consume. What am I going to consume? Well, from 7 to 8:30 tomorrow night, I'm going to watch that movie. Okay, I'm going to consume that movie from 7 to 8:30 intentionally. I'm going to wake up in the morning and watch that one video I want to watch intentionally, or I'm going to listen to a half an hour of that audiobook intentionally from 7 to 7:30 a.m. I'm then going to go downstairs and I'm going to put this in the blender intentionally, this in the blender intentionally, this in the blender intentionally, and I'm going to hit blend. And a minute later, I'm going to pour that into a glass and I'm going to drink from that glass, and it's going to bring some pleasure. Not that same kind of pleasure that ice cream brings. The apple and the spinach and the lemon and the ginger don't bring the same kind of pleasure that the ice cream brings. But it does bring a degree of pleasure. It brings a degree of pleasure above the pain. And it nourishes. So it promises, it offers the possibility of a greater feeling of internal pleasure and peace a few hours later. It's nourishing the system. So the capacity, the ability to intend, to look at one's day, to map out one's day, to look at tomorrow, and to live a day intentionally. And intentionally doesn't mean perfectly. Intentionalist doesn't mean perfectionist. You can mess up. You can mess up as an intentionalist. You can fail. But as an intentionalist, you recognize the failure. You appreciate the failure. You look into the origins of the deviation. You readjust and you get back on track. You learn from it. You look at it and you learn from it. And you go, what happened there? I had intended to do that, but then all of a sudden I was doing that. Oh, that's why. That's why, yeah. That's why. Got that text that was really stressful, and then I got that other thing that was stressful, and so I walked over to the freezer and pulled out the ice cream and started eating ice cream. Okay. I get it. Okay. Those things are connected. Or I intended to work on that, then I got really overwhelmed by what I was working on, and all of a sudden I was doing again. Intentionality. Cultivate it. Practice it. Inquire into it. Reflect on it. Practice it. To be continued.